So it's a privilege to be here tonight with so many community members and chanchim, leaders, and dear fellow members of our community. We're gathering here tonight to work together to focus on our future and to build a better tomorrow for our children. Tonight is not just about awareness, bringing awareness to a particular issue, but it's more about action. Hopefully we'll hear some insightful tools, things that we can do, that we can implement to be able to work towards as a community, as individuals, as families, towards building that future for us all and for our families. Before we begin, I would like to ask Rabbi Vidal, the principal of Beis Chaim Elementary School, to come up and to read the Kapitlach of the Rebbe and the Rebbe.
Shir Amalis LeDavid, Lule Adinoi Shor Yolanu Yermanor Yisroel, Lule Adinoi Shor Yolanu Bekum Alenu Odom, Azai Chaim Belonu Bachareis Apam Bonu, Azai Amayim Shetafunu Nachlo Ovar Al Nafshenu, Azai Ovar Al Nafshenu Amayim Azidoini, Baruch Adinoi Shalom Esananu Teref Leshinea, Nafshenu Ketziper Nimlatom Mipach Yoikshi, Apach Nishbar Banachnu Nimlotnu, Azenu b'shem Adinoi, v'yisei shamayim v'aretz. Shir Amalos habetchim b'Adinoi, kahar tzion, lo yimei k'rilom yeshei. Yerushalayim arim saviv lo, Adinoi saviv l'amri, me'ato ve'adilom. Kilo yanuach shevet haresha, avera l'tzadikim leman, v'yishlechu l'tzadikim l'alosa yideim. Etivo Adinoi l'ateitim, v'lisharim b'livoisom. V'amati makal kaleisam, yirlichem Adinoi, espeali ha'oven, sholem al Yisrael.
Yashikoyach. So we're here tonight to discuss an opportunity, a challenge, an opportunity that affects us all. Technology, screen time, social media, these are words that come up and are prevalent in our life nowadays, perhaps more than any other. But tonight, we're not going to tell you about their evils or paint a picture of dark and of gloom. Everybody is aware to the extent that these things have the ability to do to our homes and to our family. But instead, we are going to try to orient this towards how we can be action-based and helpful in making it a more powerful tool in our lives in a safe way. I didn't realize this, but in the front page of the handout that you have, I guess they stole my speech. Ches Adar Sheni reads, Amor Kosev Be'echad Me'michtava, the Rabbi Rashad writes in one of his letters, Toiva Pa'ula Achas Me'elef Anochais, one action-based effort is better than 1,000 sighs. Elekeinu Chai V'Torah Mitzvahs Nitzchim Heira. Our Hashem is alive, Torah and mitzvahs are eternal. Azoi V'Sa'anacha, leave the sigh aside, and invest your efforts in practical, action-based avodah, and Hashem will be gracious with us. So it's well known, the story of Chaim Fagan was once vibrating underground in Russia, and he was vibrating in a meaningful way, and the Bachrim, some of them were moved to tears out of the desire to do tshuva and to connect. And it was a powerful moment. And immediately, at one point in the middle of the Fabrengen, a bacher from upstairs runs in and alerts that the KGB is around the corner. So immediately everybody jumps up and springs into action and starts hiding and devising plans where to go. And once the danger passes, Rav Chacha turns to the bacher and he famously says, it's interesting that when we're talking about improving in our ways and building our character and becoming closer to Hashem, so then we cry. But when an external threat that's very real manifests around us, all of a sudden everybody jumps into action and everybody knows exactly what to do, and nobody's crying. So tonight we're just going to be discussing what we need to do. The Mishnah and Pirkei Avos in mind, Kol ma shebara Kadosh Baruch Hu ba'ilama levara ela l'chvoidai. We just need to figure out how the phone and the social media can be used to crack the code to using it in the service of its creator, Hashem. To open up the evening, we're honored to invite Rabbi Levi Jacobson, the Shliach at JRCC West Thornhill, who is a Rav to many and known for his ability to bring clarity, and who is helpful and supportive to many of the families in the community today, to help us share a few words of inspiration to focus on our future.
Good evening, and I'm sure your shukayach will be given to those that organized this event and sponsored this event and made this event happen. It's a very important event, and thank you very much for making it happen. There's a mitzvah, Kisivne Bayis Chadash, when you buy a new house, the Torah commands us that you have to place a railing, mitzvah smaika, you have to make a maika on the roof. And the Torah tells us that we have to do so that no one should fall from this roof. And so that you shouldn't have blood in your house, that you shouldn't cause any danger, you shouldn't injure anybody. So this is a very interesting mitzvah that is discussed at length. The Poskim, the Machlekes between Rambam and Ramban, the Smag and the Smak. But exactly how we understand this mitzvah, usually in addition to having this mitzvah, there's also a bracha that we're supposed to make when we make a maika, when we put a railing around our roof. However, the halacha is also that certain places don't require a railing. So the mitzvah is a very interesting mitzvah. On one hand, we're told that you have, if there's a dangerous situation, that you have to put up a railing, you have to put up some type of protective guardrail. It's Sheni. On the other hand, we're also told that a shul, for example, doesn't require a guardrail. So if it's just in order to protect people, the halacha should have been that in any place, if there's a roof, if there's any type of danger, you put up a guardrail. But that's not the halacha. So it's a very interesting mitzvah and very interesting halacha. There's a lot written about it, and for good reason, because it's a fascinating subject. And how exactly it's understood is a complete two different mitzvahs. There's a one mitzvah essa, one other mitzvah leis essa. According to some, it's not a mitzvah leis essa, just mitzvah essa. Some see it purely as an extension of making sure that people are safe around you. So, al pi nigla, this is a fascinating subject. And full of very interesting disagreement. The Rebbe has a number of sichos on this mitzvah, and one of the sichos, the Rebbe says that if you look at it purely from the perspective of nigla, it's very difficult to understand this mitzvah, and you have to look at it from the deeper perspective, al pi chassidus, al pi pnimius haTorah. Pointing out, there are a number of sichos on it, but in this particular sicha, the Rebbe says, pointing out that we see something interesting. The Torah doesn't just say that if you have a roof, then you need a guardrail. The Torah says, that if you build a new home, that's when you need to put up guardrails. Pointing out that the issue of the guardrails is a consistent one that has to happen in our life. The deeper way of looking at this mitzvah is not just a mitzvah to make sure that people around you are safe. That's another mitzvah. And in fact, the Alter Rebbe discusses in the Shulchan Aruch, he takes it from the Shulchan Aruch, the Rambam says the same thing. You're not allowed to have a dangerous dog, you're not allowed to have anything dangerous at home. It's not just being a nice citizen and a good citizen to make sure that people around you are safe, but this is purely a halacha, and very possibly a mitzvah d'oraisa, mitzvah essa, and a mitzvah leis essa. But on a deeper level, this talks to a point in our life when you're entering a new stage in your life. So when you enter a new stage in your life, there's a danger, there's a fear, there's a possibility of missteps, there's a possibility of falling, there's a possibility of failing, and particularly at those junctures, at these moments of changing, of making the changes in your life, that's when you particularly have to be careful. So in general in our life, there are major stages, major stations in our life. We're single, we get married, we're in kollel, we go into the workforce, and so on the different stages. You give birth, you become a parent, you become a parent. There are different major milestones in our life, but the truth of the matter is that every single stage of our life brings a different set of possibilities, and together with those possibilities are also pitfalls. And therefore, this mitzvah reminds us that with the change that happens, whether you're going from summer to winter, you're going from hard work to lesser work, no matter what the changes happen at these junctures in life, you must have a micah, you must have a guardrail to make sure that you and those that are around you stay safe. So this is fascinating. This is Allah Shulchan Aruch. This is not just, again, about being a good citizen and being a caring person or being sensitive or careful. It's Allah and Shulchan Aruch. It's a mitzvah d'oraisa. It's a biblical commandment. Again, exactly what the chalais is. So a question comes up that's discussed in the Farshim. What's the story with a pool? Does a pool need to have a gate around it? Is it a mitzvah d'oraisa? So obviously it's a good thing. You want to be safe. But is there a halacha that you have to have a gate around your pool? Is it mitzvah d'oraisa? And if you don't have a gate around your pool, are you transgressing a biblical prohibition? Are you transgressing a loisesem? Again, a very interesting discussion. Everybody agrees that it's a good idea. The question is it d'oraisa or is it the rabbanon? What exactly is the chalais? What exactly is the? In general, most places can agree that it's a chiyuv d'oraisa that you have to place a gate around your pool. So going into summer, it's good to keep this in mind that if you have a pool, make sure that you have a gate. But I think of this not just because we're talking about being careful, and not just because this is a time of, we're talking about technology, which is so important, but an incident that happened with myself a number of years ago. I took my children to a pool, and I was watching them. And one of my children wasn't able to swim yet, but the child was sitting on the stairs of the pool and playing with some type of floaties or whatever. And I was watching. And the other children were playing in the water as well. At a certain point, the child that was sitting on the stairs, on the steps of the pool, pushed one of the floaties that they were playing with, and it went deeper into the water. And naturally, the child went to get it, but it was too deep. So the child started floating and very, very quickly sunk to the bottom of the pool. I was standing right there. I was standing with my bar malchus and my cell phone properly in both hands. But I dropped what I had and I jumped into the water and pulled the child out. Everything was fine. It was fractions of seconds. So it was a frightening moment. And Baruch Hashem, everything was okay. But I learned something fascinating then. Sometimes we think of somebody drowning and we think that if somebody's drowning, they make a lot of noises and they thrash around and they splash around and you would see, you would hear, you would notice. I discovered that it's not that way. It happened in a fraction of a second, absolute silence, no cry, no call. I saw it happening before my eyes, and literally within a second, the child was down at the bottom of the pool. What's the point of this? Sometimes we think of danger, and this is part of what the Torah is telling us. Sometimes we think of danger, we think we have it figured out. I'm responsible. I get it. I know it. I know. I understand. And that's actually part of the argument of those that say that a pool doesn't need to have a gate around. They say because everybody knows that a pool is dangerous. So there's no need to have a gate because everybody knows it. It's rejected by most poskim. But that's one of the things. It's clear. It's clear. I'm not sure how that position is made because it says clearly in Allah. It says clearly in Shulchan Aruch. A bird in somebody's shoes, whether it has water or doesn't have water, needs to have a gate around it. Again, I'm not going to get into the technicality of the halacha, but with regards to the dangers that exist, sometimes we think that I wasn't born under a rock. I don't live under a rock. I know life. I know the stuff of life. The Torah tells us that no matter, and it's possible that we've been through some stuff and we figured it out and everything was okay. Tells us the Torah, and the Rebbe emphasizes, and you go through another stage, you go through a new milestone in your life, what you've experienced and what you've been successful with in the past could be amazing, but now you need to have a new guardrail. Now you have to be more cautious. Now you have to take another step in the direction of making sure that you and those that are around you are safe. So I'm not advocating for no swimming. I'm not advocating for just swimming without boundaries. The Torah tells us, have a micah, have a guardrail. It's okay to have a rooftop, it's fine. I think this beautiful building has one as well, yeah? It's okay to have a rooftop, but it has to be proper guardrails. And so I thank you for coming, thank you for organizing, and may we all have proper guardrails, may we all have Bayis Chadash, new happy events in our life and times in our life. May we implement the proper guardrails in those additional stages as well. May we have the ultimate Bayis Chadash, the Bayis Hashlishi, revealed and seen. May it happen now. Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Jacobson. Before we move on, we would like to give a huge thank you, a big yasher koyach, to the generous event sponsors of tonight. I saw them before up on the screen, perhaps I can go back up. Mr. Shalom and Rachel Meyer, Mr. Oren and Mr. and Mrs. Oren Amelia and Tevi, Avraham and Chavi Bernstein, Shua and Nechama Chanowitz, Yosef and Sidney Castle, Dr. Mendy and Sarah Lowenthal, Yassi and Chavi Rappaport, Dr. Leo and Cheryl Steiner, Mendy and, maybe that's why I'm up here, I'm related to her. If you want to be the MC at the next event, just tell your family it's my time. Mendy and Basi Taubi, Morty and Frady Schechter, Josh and Vanessa Lang, Yassi and Lila Reinitz, Shlomo and Miriam Rosenzweig, Shraga and Avital White. Thank you so much for your support. The future of our community. We also want to thank the committee for tonight's event who put this together, the Chanowitz, Rosenfeld, Brown, Volasov, and Saitlin families who spent so much time and effort in the Rabbi Jacobson and Rabbi Vidal for your dedication and guidance throughout tonight's evening. Our featured speaker for tonight is not someone who brings just expertise, but real-world experience to the table. Dr. Eli Shapiro is a licensed clinical social worker, holds a doctorate in education, and the creator of the Digital Citizenship Project, an international voice on parenting, tech use, emotional wellness. His stuff and his videos, many of which I've seen, are practical, relatable, action-based, and are all aligned with the values that we all hold so dear. It's my honor to welcome Dr. Shapiro to address us tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to first start by thanking the committee, the sponsors, Mrs. Rosenfeld, who I interact with the most. I am very excited to be here. Did everybody squeeze in a little bit? All right, so we're here to talk about technology and responsible use of it. Rabbi Jacobson, I love your story about the pool, not your personal story. I mean, it was inspiring. I was picturing you jumping in the pool with all your clothes and hat. But not only because you talked about the guardrails, but I believe the Gemara in Kedushin talks about mitzvahs ha'aval ben, the responsibilities of a father to a child, and one of those responsibilities. Can you hear me? One of those responsibilities is teaching your child to swim. And so it's a combination of both the guardrails and the protection and the filters and the device management, as well as teaching the responsible use of technology. And I think that's what we're here tonight to talk about, not just limiting it, but really understanding the role that technology plays in our lives and how we can better manage it in a way that is healthy, responsible, and growth-oriented. So the first thing I want to mention is that we're not here just to talk about the internet, right? With the internet, content, we're here to talk about technology as a whole. Just by raise of hands, how many of you have experienced what we call phantom vibrations? That's when your body's vibrating but your phone's not with you, where you're doing something like this. For the men, it's usually like Friday Night Shimon Esrei, you're doing one of these, right? I don't know for the women how it manifests itself, but how many of you have experienced that at some point in your lives? So that's something that we experience. That's 89% of people have experienced that. And it really underscores the idea that technology is so impactful that we are literally experiencing physical symptoms as a result of it. So we can only imagine what it's doing to our overall functioning socially, psychologically, behaviorally, our relationships, our families, our spouses, our learning, our motivation, all these other pieces. We're experiencing physical symptoms that really underscores the impact that technology is having. So I created, as was mentioned, something called the Digital Citizenship Project. This was about 12 years ago already. At the time, the President of the United States was Barack Obama, and we would get phone calls from people who thought that digital citizenship was a pathway to U.S. citizenship through the internet. And they'd be like, oh, how do we become U.S. citizens? Under President Trump, we don't get any phone calls. There's no assumption that is a pathway. But digital citizenship is the norms of appropriate responsible behavior when it comes to technology. The norms of appropriate responsible behavior. So if I were to ask you, your community came together, invested on putting together a beautiful evening, and this is really, give a round of applause again. This is like, I do think this is probably the nicest room I've ever presented in, so and just a great vibe here. It's really amazing. So if I were to tell you, your community comes together, invests hours and dollars and to put this together, and they bring a speaker from across the border, and the very first thing that they do is they take a selfie. Is that normal? Is that appropriate? Is that responsible? No one has a thought on that? No? Yeah, for most people, they would say that's pretty strange. But that's really where technology is today, where we are engaging in behaviors as technology becomes part of our lives that may not be normal, appropriate, or responsible to others and responsible to ourselves as well. I like to say that we live in the best of times, we live in the worst of times. Technology is amazing, it's wonderful. It also has many challenges to it as well. It's the age of wisdom, it's the age of foolishness. Technology offers us accessibility, productivity, information, connectivity, all these amazing things that it does. I actually relate to the connectivity piece more so than before. I have 2 children and 3 grandchildren that live in Eretz Yisrael, and the ability to FaceTime with them and connect with them is amazing, and it's wonderful. And I know what a lot of you are thinking, is how can a guy so young have 3 grandchildren? Unbelievable, right? The answer is moisturizer. I prefer L'Occitane with 5% shea butter is what I use. So if there's one thing you walk out of here tonight with, beauty tips, moisturizer. That's number one. One thing we learned tonight is, and these are my 3 grandchildren. But usually I have to cue the audience to go, oh, but this audience is great. Okay, so yeah, these are all right, so it is the best of times. Technology is amazing, but it also is the worst of times. We have challenges socially, behaviorally, psychologically, day to day. All of this is impacted by technology. And we can have 2 truths that are opposing each other at the same time. Yes, technology can be amazing. It can be such an add-on, such a wonderful aspect to our lives. I recently heard from Ruvain Feinstein that there has never been a time in Jewish history that so much Torah has been proliferated and so many people are learning Shiurim and Daf Yomi, and it's an amazing time. We've never had this before. So yes, that can be true, and we can have negative challenges that technology presents as well. Our goal is to understand the negative challenges and elevate it so we can benefit from technology as much as we can. And again, I'm not well versed in Chabad Chasidus, but I do know that there is a concept in Basi Lagani, the idea of Shtus Umas Olam, and elevating it to Shtus Kedusha. This idea that we can take something that is a challenge and elevated, I think, is so ingrained in the Chabad community. It's something that I admire myself. With that said, I love technology. Just by raising hands, how many of you? Is it just me? Me and that guy? Okay, just two of us. I mean, the world loves technology. It's an amazing thing. One study a number of years ago found that 6 billion out of the world's 7 billion people owned a mobile phone, but only 4.5 billion had a toilet. So when you think of where the priorities are, what are the priorities? Right? We also have a generational disconnect. We have a challenge. You ever get the sense that our children know more about technology than we do? You get that? There's always like tech people in the room that are like, I know more than my kids. And, yeah, but for me anyway, I feel like we have a generational disconnect. I like this text between a mother and child. Your great aunt just passed away. LOL. Why is that funny? It's not funny, David. What do you mean? Mom, LOL means laughing out loud. Oh my goodness, I sent that to everyone. I thought it meant lots of love. You're laughing, but we've all been there. We've all been there where we didn't quite get the lingo, right? And this is a challenge. Much in the same way in the early 1920s immigration in the United States, we had parents that were speaking Yiddish, and we had children that were speaking English, and it created a real challenge developmentally, and a lot of kids went off the derech as a result of it. There wasn't that connection. And in many ways today, our kids are speaking digital, and we are still speaking the proverbial Yiddish. We're not connecting with them in an arena where they are developing. However, all is not lost. There are some areas that we know more about than our kids do. Our kids don't know what this is. Our kids don't know what this is. Although in most Chabad communities, they tell me it's a pushka. So, I guess, I don't know. And additionally, they certainly don't know the relationship between these two items. I can see some of the younger members in the audience don't know either. For someone older, they can share with you. All right, so let me share with you some data and statistics. 95% of teens, now this data comes from the secular world, but I don't think it is anything similar to what's happening in the Jewish world, but I think it's important to know. And I think data and statistics are important. If my reputation has preceded me at all, you'll know that I love data-informed practice and statistics. You know, some of my audience will say that I have too much data and statistics in my presentations. Actually, about 72% of my audience is saying that there's too much data and statistics in my presentation. But I think it's important that data inform what we do. It shouldn't define it. It should inform. My brother, who takes statistics a little too seriously, when he was expecting his 5th child, he decorated the baby's nursery in an Asian theme, because he read a study that every 5th child born in America is Asian. So, yeah, that's not using statistics in the right way. But 95% of kids own or have access to a smartphone. Now, I want to go back. Own or have access. Let's not dismiss this idea of our kids not having a smartphone. They do, in most cases, have access to one. And it's important to recognize that that is impactful as well. We tend to think about the watershed moment is when am I giving my child a device? That's not the moment. The moment is when am I giving my child access to a device? And oftentimes that's happening at younger and younger ages. Social networking, we know some of the challenges with that. Again, opportunity and challenge. Best of times, worst of times. We need to harness the opportunities and avoid the challenges. 90% of teens are active users of social media. Gaming, video games, gaming systems. A lot of parents don't recognize or are unaware that an Xbox or a PlayStation is a computer with internet access, with an app store, with devices, with full access. And also there are device management opportunities built in for parents to utilize those. And so gaming, we tend to think about those aggressive games. We hear things like Grand Theft Auto or Call of Duty, these violent games, but even innocuous games like Super Mario or sports games, these can be challenging if the behavior is compulsive or having an impact on overall functioning. And what we're seeing is that 90% of teens are active users of digital gaming, 54% are playing more than 2.5 hours a day, and I'm not going to ask you how often your husbands are playing video games. Come We also sometimes have gaming, we have social media, we have devices. We have videos. I'm not going to ask who has subscriptions to what, but even things like Yidflix or Tovito, or things that the content is not problematic, the behavior can be problematic. If a child is watching hours a day of kosher videos, that behavior is challenging and presents developmental issues for that child. 69% of teens are watching more than an hour a day of videos and common sense media, and generally more than 7 hours daily of non-school related screen time. The last statistic I saw on this was that it was up to 8.5 hours a day of kids' screen time. And when we think about that, assuming the content is 100% kosher and nothing along those lines, it really creates a void in the existence of the child, in the social connections that they're having, in the other opportunities that they may be missing out on. So these are some of the basic statistics that we want to keep in mind when we're addressing technology. I wanted to log on to the Wi-Fi here. They wouldn't let me. They're very protective of the password. So I'm going to log in the old-fashioned way. Those of you that grew up in the 90s, this is very familiar to you. And what's amazing is, this is what we had to do to get online. I remember when we got that disc, 99 free hours of internet, which was like this amazing thing, and we log on and get a list of phone numbers, and none of the phone numbers worked, so you have to go down the list, 1, number 2, number 3. And you finally get a number that worked, and you wouldn't tell any of your neighbors because you didn't want them to use that phone number, and then you finally got on, and you were about to do it, making that noise, and then someone in your house picked up the phone, and you lost the connection. And then you have to start over and make some sort of declaration in your house. No one picked up the phone, I'm going online, you know, and it was like a big deal. And that was what the 90s were like, and there was a certain menuchas hanefesh that we had back then. There was a certain peacefulness we just don't have today. With the constant tethering to devices, we are overstressed, we are overburdened, and we are overprogrammed as a result of technology today, and that's having an impact on us. It's having an impact on us behaviorally, socially, psychologically. In the behavioral domains, we see dependence, distraction, impulsivity, disinhibition, and sleep. These areas, dependence and distraction, I don't think I have to explain. Impulsivity, disinhibition, and sleep. Impulsivity is when we do something and don't think about the potential consequences. And when it comes to communicating online, whether it's texting or WhatsApping or emailing, we tend to be impulsive about it. 39% of students that we surveyed said that they emailed, texted, or posted something that they later regretted. And that's what impulsivity is. It's not thinking through what you might be sending out. But it's not just a kid thing. Adults do it too. We are impulsive when it comes to technology. One study found that more than half of adults posted messages that they later regretted, and 22% report doing so on a weekly basis. On a weekly basis, there is something inherent to technology that makes us more impulsive. Additionally, we have something called the online disinhibition effect, that we're more likely to do or say something in the digital realm than we would in a face-to-face conversation. There's a certain busha, a certain behavioral norms that we wouldn't do in a public way, but there's a sense of anonymity in the digital realm, whether I'm using a purely anonymous screen name, or even if I'm sending you an email from ellie@ellieshapiro.com. It's very clear you know who it is, I'm still more likely to do or say something. Again, this is the kids and adults. We all experience this in our interactions with technology. But when we add impulsivity and disinhibition to a middle schooler or a high schooler, that tends to be a little more, disinhibited and impulsive to begin with, it can be a very dangerous combination that can result in some real challenges. One of the things that I don't think gets enough attention is the impact the lack of sleep has on overall functioning and development. The artificial light from the phones makes it harder to fall asleep. It actually impacts melatonin production in the brain, and the buzzing keeps us up. Kids are not getting the quality sleep that they need. The number one predictor of kids being successful in school on any given day, both socially and academically, it directly relates to the quality of sleep they had the night before. So if there's one thing you want to do for your kids is give them a good night's sleep. What we found is that 77% of kids report going to bed late as a result of their technology. It's no surprise that about 75% of kids report sleeping with their devices within reach. So that device could be a smartphone, it could be an Amazon Kindle, it could be something that is keeping them up at night. Now, why do kids say they need a device next to their bed? Why? An alarm clock, right? So I have this vision that the kids all got together and said, okay, look, they can't argue with an alarm clock, right? Let's tell them we need an alarm clock. So, you have Dollarama up here, right? Yeah. So they sell this like brown box with red numbers on it, and it makes like a really loud noise in the morning. That's much better. One of the things that we can do is give our kids the gift of a good night's sleep. So that's number 2 that I want you to walk away with. What was number 1? Who remembers? Skincare. Well, Oxycontin 5% shea butter. Number two is giving our kids a good night's sleep. It is so critically important. I can't stress that enough. Socially, we see digital distraction, social dependence, online aggression, all these issues around that. We have digital disconnection. Even adults today are spending less time face-to-face with each other. I call this a regression to parallel play. If you know anything about like preschoolers, they play next to each other but not with each other. And we as a society have regressed to that experience all over again. And UCLA did a fascinating study where they looked at kids and their ability to read facial expressions and social cues. And they measured it. They got a baseline of kids' ability to read facial expressions and social cues, and then they sent them to sleepaway camp without any technology. And then they measured them throughout the summer. And what they found was that after only 5 days without digital technology, their ability to read facial expressions and social cues and form meaningful connections with their friends vastly improved. In only 5 days. And this study's been replicated numerous times. And what they find is 2 very important pieces. One is digital technology is having a negative impact on the quality of our social lives, on our interactions. It is having a negative impact. But more importantly, we can repair it. We can repair it by taking breaks from technology. And if I were to ask you, when is it, you all know this, when is it that you connect with your children and your spouses more than any other time? When is it? Victoria Day, right? No. Right. Shabbos. Yeah. Is it Victoria Day today? Tomorrow. All right. Trying to be culturally sensitive. Okay. But no, Shabbos. This is amazing. You cannot compare the quality of your connection with your family that you have on Shabbos. And I believe one of the main reasons is we are not distracted by our devices. But we don't have to wait till Shabbos to make that happen. We can take breaks during the week. We can do things like going out for dinner. In my own home, we spend at least 20 minutes when we're home and have dinner together without technology. And you will be amazed at what that does. Just putting the devices, taking your phone out of your pocket, putting it in the other room for 20 minutes. And you will have a completely different experience with your children and your spouse. And it's such an easy opportunity that we can bring Shabbos into. When I go out with friends, we go out to dinner, we stack our phones in the middle of the table, and whoever takes their phone first has to pay for dinner. That's now I have a friend who's completely addicted to his phone, so we invite him every time, and he hasn't figured it out yet. But there are things that we can do to to make the quality of our interactions with friends and family that much better. A study by the Surgeon General of the United States found that people were spending, going from 30 hours a month connecting face-to-face with their friends to only 10 hours a month in the last 15 years. We see a significant reduction. But what's really amazing, and the scary statistic to me, was that we're spending 5 hours less per month within our home. With the people within our home are spending less time, 5 hours less per month connecting. Most of that time is being in front of a screen and being distracted. So we need to be aware of this, and we need to make adjustments and change those habits. And it's something that we all can do. Psychologically, we see anxiety, depression, isolation, addiction. We've all been there. We've all been there where we forgot our phone at home and we're like, halfway down Bathurst to wherever we're going. And we're like, oh my God, I forgot my phone at home. Oh my God, I forgot my phone. No one can get in touch with me. How do I get it? That's anxiety right there. You feel it right here. Forgot my phone at home. No, and those of us that are moderately well adjusted, you don't have to be fully well adjusted, but just moderately, you go from, I forgot my phone at home. No one can get in touch with me. I forgot my phone at home. no one can get in touch with me. And it's amazing. And it's like the 90s all over again, where I can breathe, right? That's an unbelievable experience. We have that barometer where we can measure against and say, wow, I can do so much better by taking breaks from my phone. Sometimes when I come home from work, I'll go upstairs, I'll put my phone upstairs, and for the first 5 minutes, I'm like, right, you know, but then you forget about it. And you're much more in the moment. You're experiencing just a higher level, higher quality of engagement and interaction. We've seen amongst kids, they've surveyed them, avid cell phone use. Kids obviously say, it's so important, it enhances my lifestyle, it's my social connection, it's a doorway. They will sell you however they can on having a smartphone, having a device. What they actually found was that the more importance kids place on their devices, the more important it was for them, the higher their levels of anxiety were, the lower their levels of subjective well-being were, they were less happy, and they also performed poorer in school. And that had to do with their relationship. And if you have multiple children, you know that some of your kids are like super connected to devices, they're always asking you for your phone, they're like clawing at it, and other your kids are not. There's a predisposition that some kids are going to be more connected. Kids with anxiety and social anxiety and depression are more likely to develop unhealthy habits with technology, and as parents, we need to be aware of that in order to mitigate the impact that it's going to have. Any mental health professionals in the room? So I can just make stuff up then, right? No, but I saw someone raise their hand. Okay. All right, so if you could confirm that these are the diagnostic criteria for anxiety. This is what we look at: excessive worry, intrusive thoughts, fatigue, emotional distress, irritability, difficulty sleeping. These are what mental health professionals will look at to come up with a diagnosis of anxiety. I found it interesting that you can leave those diagnostic criteria the same and just change the disorder, and parenting is the exact same experience. It's the exact same experience. All right, so this is, anybody know what this is? We'll pull it out. Hashtag, pound sign, number sign, tic-tac-toe, okay. Okay, just so you know, the technical term for this is an octothorpe. And the reason I tell you this is because I've always had this fantasy that I'd be in a social setting and someone would be like, oh, anyone know what that is? And I'd be like, oh, it's an octothorpe. And they'd be like, wow, he knows stuff. And it's never happened for me. But perhaps it can happen for you, and so I'm just giving you that gift that maybe one day it'll happen. But I really have this here to remind me to tell you of my two favorite psychologists. Not my psychologists, I actually don't think they're doing a very good job, but my two favorite, they are Peterson and Seligman, they're the founders of the positive psychology movement. And they did a wonderful study that's called the Positive Journaling Study, where they found that people who write down 5 things every day that they're grateful for had elevated subjective well-being. They were happier people just by expressing gratitude. And I know this is not a big finish for us. We've obviously times that they were constantly expressing gratitude, and it might be why we have lower rates of depression in the Orthodox community than in the secular population. But this is what they found: higher, when you express gratitude, higher levels of subjective well-being. The flip side is true as well. When you express negativity, when you're exposed to negativity and espouse negativity, you actually lower your levels of subjective well-being and you make yourself miserable. So if I were to ask you, in the digital realm, are you more likely to post or share positive things by default or negative things? Let me ask you this. If Air Canada gets you to your destination on time, like that would ever happen, if Air Canada gets you to your destination on time with your luggage, are you more likely to share that with friends and post about that? Or if you were delayed 6 hours and your luggage was somewhere else? Which are you more likely to fire off the communication? It's the negative. An article, which do you think gets shared quicker and which has more reach? The article about the person who donated $100,000 to the community center, or the article about the guy who embezzled $100,000 to the community center? Which do you think gets it? So there was a study that was done, and they looked at hashtags, positive versus negative. So for every positive hashtag, there were 2 negative hashtags. So what's actually happening is we are victimizing ourselves by engaging in posting negative, sharing negative. Again, that's our default. It doesn't have to be that way. We can use technology for positivity, to share positive, to post positive, to make someone feel good, give someone a compliment, all these wonderful things that we can do to elevate our own well-being and those of others as well. 70% of kids use technology longer than they intended. This has a tremendous psychological impact because what happens is they don't feel that they can self-regulate their behaviors. And when you don't feel like you can self-regulate, you don't feel good about yourself. And we have kids, when they come home from school, let's just say they're going to play an innocuous video game like Mario Brothers, or they're going to go on Netflix and watch kosher content. They know they have a test the next day, so they say, I'm just going to watch one episode, or I'm going to play one game, and what happens after that one game or one episode? You can tell me what happens. They do another one, and then keep going, right? And then like 4 hours later, you remember you have a kid in the basement who's playing, like, oh my gosh, and then you yell at your kid, Doug, you know that you're not supposed to be, right? That's what happens. And what has never happened in the history of parenting, it has never happened that a parent yells at their child that they were on the computer too long, and the child says, oh, thank you so much. I hadn't realized that the time that you had allotted me expired. I'm going to get off right now. Right? So that never happens. Usually what you'll hear is, but I'm in the middle of a level or in the middle of an episode. At that point, you want to say 5 more minutes, because let's face it, the 5 more minutes won't make the difference in the time that they've already spent, but it will make the difference in the transition. So that's another quick parenting tip. But if kids can't self-regulate their behavior, they are relying on us, the parents, to help them regulate it. That is the challenge that we have as parents, is if we are giving our kids access to technology, if we're lending them our devices, if we're letting them watch videos or play games, video games, what we are doing is we are taking a hiatus upon ourselves to regulate it. And it's very important to remember that. Our relationship with technology is directly related to how our kids are using technology, and that communication and that oversight needs to be there. Early exposure to inappropriate websites and graphic violence can result in emotional distress. I can't tell you how many times kids end up on their parents' devices if it's not being managed, if it's not being filtered, where they end up being exposed, and not just to the schmutz that we know exists, but even the regular. If you go onto a kosher news website, the kosher news website's very concerning very much. There's videos, graphic violence, the latest coming out of Israel. Now, normally there will be a sash across the video that says warning graphic content. So for most kids, warning graphic content translates to click here. That's how they read it. And so it's important. 63% of the kids that we surveyed in middle school seen an image or video clip that they found disturbing, that had a negative impact on their subjective well-being. So our kids are being exposed to content that is disturbing to them, and the only way to address that is through oversight. Like I said, even a filter is not going to block out Yeshiva World News or Buses Nights, or some of those other quote-unquote kosher websites. They're going to be exposed to content that is troubling. Any parents of kids in early childhood here? Okay, good. I just want to spend a minute on this. We tend to think about teens and technology as the area that we worry about. I am far more concerned about kids in early childhood and technology. The impact that technology has on the brain from 0 to 5 is far more significant than it has on high school kids. Preschool development, we see attachment issues, regulations, dependence learning. I'll just give you a quick example of the dependence we are creating for our kids when it comes to technology. It used to be when you would take your child to the doctor and they're 2 years old and they would get a shot. They get the shot, and then the parent would pick up the child. They're crying. The parent would rub their back and make them feel good. What is the child learning from that experience? They're learning my parent loves me, they care about me, and in that process, they can make me feel better when I'm sad, when I'm in pain. Today, all too often, that same child gets the shot, and what does the parent do? They hand them the smartphone. And what happens? The child stops crying because the smartphone works. But what are they learning in that experience? They are learning that when I'm distressed, when I'm in pain, a screen can make me feel better. And that is where we are really creating high levels of dependence on younger kids. And that is why the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends avoiding screen time under 18 months and 2 to 5 years old, less than an hour a day. And even when they say less than an hour a day, it's really about FaceTiming with family and something that's interactive. It's not watching videos. That's what they're referring to. JAMA in 2019 found that 87% of kids under 5 are exceeding the daily recommended amount of screen time. And so I implore you, when it comes to the early childhood, the younger kids, I know it's easier to give them a device and have them satiated or a pacifier in a sense, but it really does have a significant developmental impact. So we've talked about some of the challenges that we have with technology, social, psychological behavior. Ultimately, what can we do? Well, thank you so much. I'm out of time for tonight. This has been great. I hope you enjoyed. All right, before we get there, I just want to share some numbers with you. I've been collecting data from across the United States, and I think some schools in Canada over the years, yeah. And we found that 89% of parents report having set rules in their house. 89% of parents, which is a great number. Having set rules in the house are so important. The only problem is when we survey kids, only 41% of kids say that there are set rules in their house. So we have like a little, doesn't line up. 92% of parents report having conversations about using the internet responsibly with their children, which is like an amazing statistic. It's so fantastic, 92%. The only problem is, the kids say, only 31% of them say that the parents have had these conversations. And when asked, parents, only 14% of parents report that their kids have seen an image or video online that disturbed them, but we know that 63% of kids have been exposed to that. And I think that I understand where this disconnect, I don't think anyone's being dishonest. I think that there's a disconnect where we as parents think one thing is happening, and for our kids something else is happening. And to underscore that point, I always felt that if my public speaking career didn't work out, I would want to be a mentalist. Everybody familiar with a mentalist? You ever have that at like an event or something? The mentalist comes, he knows exactly what you're thinking. I'm looking at you, and you're thinking, now where is he going with this? Am I right? Am I right? Yes, thank you. Can I get a round of applause? So what I'd like to do, if you'll indulge me, a quick exercise which I call Dr. Ellie, the mentalist. Is it okay if we do that? I'm going to do it anyway, so if you just like validate me, I'll feel better about doing it. But all right, we're going to do this together. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to do my magic mentalist hand move that goes like this, right, like that. And you're going to say the answer in unison. And if I am right, the answer will appear on the screen. I know it's hard to imagine that this is going to happen, but we're going to go. All right?
All right.
All right?
All right.
What is 1 plus 1?
2.
Can I get a round of applause? I'm only hearing the one. You guys aren't you don't seem that impressed. You seem skeptical. Let's try something a little more difficult. Your child comes home from school, and you say, "How was your day?"
Fine.
What's for something?
Okay, I heard good, I heard fine. Can I get a round of applause? It's getting a little more impressive, isn't it? Okay. No, but most of you are good parents. You are not going to let your child get away with a good fine. Oh, no, you won't. You will follow up with the ever important question, what did you do today? Can I get a round of applause? All right, so I have a confession to make. I am not a mentalist. However, in every home across North America and Central America, actually, that's the conversation. How did they find what you do today? Nothing. And I think that's why we have that disconnect. I think that we're not engaging in the meaningful conversations that we could be engaging with our children to really understand their experience and to communicate what our expectations are. And I think that that's where the disconnect. As parents, we think we've had a conversation where we tell our kids, I don't want you on the computer if I'm not, watching or I don't want, right? But they're not hearing that conversation. Right? It has to be a conversation. And I think that there has to be clarity around that. And so the number one thing, rule number one, I always say, is we have to have rules. That's rule number one, having rules. So just because you have it in your head doesn't make it a rule. So one is have only 41% of kids say that there are set rules in their house. That's number one. Rule number two is discuss the rules. Have the conversation with your children. Explain to them what the expectations are. And the rules can differ. from house to house. Every house is different. And so if you are more, I would say, open for technology, your rules might be that no devices in your room, devices need to be used in a public place, and not the first hour home from school. If you are more stringent with technology in your home, your rules might be that there are no devices and there's no video game systems. And when you go to a friend's house, I don't want you on their computer as well. That might be your family rules. And it's so important is to, one, have those rules, and two, to discuss the rules with your kids. Now, rule number 3, and this is the hardest one, is keep the rules. Because what happens is we start a rule, we communicate the rule, and our kids are tenacious. Our kids are like woodpeckers, until they get us to shift the rule. So let's just say we have a video game system in our house, and they want to play video games, but you don't let them play on a weeknight. Your rule is not on a weeknight. And it's Victoria Day tomorrow, bless you. And so they'll tell you, well, it's Victoria Day. And it's a public holiday, and therefore the rules shouldn't apply, because it's not really a weeknight. And they will argue that, they're right? And so keeping the rules becomes very hard. So those have rules, communicate, thank you, discuss, and keep the rules. It's so important as parents that if we are giving them devices and access devices, let me go back one step. Ideally, we postpone as long as possible. I want to be very clear about that. Parents have come to me and say, well, at some point they're going to be using technology and et cetera. It doesn't need to start in preschool or in elementary school, or right? It can be gradual. It can be, we can wait as long as possible. We want to postpone. But if we're not postponing, if the social norms within the community are that kids are using technology, it's so important for parents to know the devices, know the content, and perhaps most importantly, knowing your child. Every child is different. Every child is going to react to technology use differently. The content, the relationship. The longer we can postpone it, the better. The more mature they will be in their ability to manage it. But it is incumbent upon parents to know the devices and know the content and know their child as well. If you are going to give your child access to a device, whether it's your own device, you need to have it managed. You don't want them accidentally ending up in places. And there are resources to become educated. It is incumbent upon us, the parents, to be educated in what we're giving our kids access to. All too often, kids are being given access some of the parents don't realize, and there are resources to become aware of that. When I did a survey, this goes back a few years, but the numbers on filters were really low. Only 24% of families reported that every device available in their house was filtered and managed. I'm not going to ask everyone to raise their hands here, but when you have one device that's filtered and 3 others that are not, and one of the things we have today that we did not have a few years ago were extra old iPhones sitting in a drawer that we probably forgot about. That has happened, and there are devices sitting around, and we forget about them, but our kids have not forgotten about them. There are resources, and we're going to hear tonight from Aryeh Blau, who is going to tell us about some of the resources available, but knowing about things like PowerPack, NetSpark, Tag, iOS. iOS is the Apple operating system. People ask me a lot about what I recommend. I often do recommend Apple iOS, primarily because I'm a shareholder in Apple, so that's why I recommend. But I also find it to be very intuitive in managing technology. 34% of parents say that students say that their parents have spoken with them about responsible internet use. Okay. Everybody knows what FOMO is? Fear of missing out. And that's a challenge that a lot of our kids are facing today. If they think that, that there's things going on in the realm of technology, does anybody know what bad is? I knew this was a bad Hashem crowd. I knew it. I knew it. No, it doesn't stand for Beth Hashem. It stands for, and I think this is the biggest challenge that parents have today. The best stands for, but everyone has. We're going to probably have like almost 100%. But how many of your children have come home at some point and told you, but everyone has the latest this, that, or the other? I want to tell you it doesn't end. My high school senior, he's graduating, I hope he passes finals, but he's supposed to be graduating at the end of the month. And when he started 12th grade, this was the but everyone has that he came home with. Said, Dad, everyone in my class, their parents have bought them a car for 12th grade. Everyone has a car. And so when it comes to what everyone has, for the most part, everyone does not have. There might be like one kid, cousin, who you heard about, may have, whatever. So it's important to keep in mind that when you're talking about, we want our kids to be involved and connected, but not everyone has. And so, particularly, one of the things that I like about a community coming together like this, you can communicate with each other and say, what are the norms for our community? What standards are we setting as a community when it comes to things like technology? And we do it for many other things as well. We do it with kashrus, we do it with tefillah, with community standards that we want. We can do it with technology as well. And what I have found is, in the most part, it's the social demand that creates the demand for our kids. If they see that other people have, they're going to want it. Much so like monkeys. And I'm going to play this short video.
So a final experiment that I want to mention to you is our fairness study. And so this became a very famous study, and there's now many more, because after we did this about 10 years ago, it became very well known. And we did that originally with capuchin monkeys, and I'm going to show you the first experiment that we did. It has now been done with dogs, and with birds, and with chimpanzees, but with Sarah Dawson, who started out with capuchin monkeys. And there's a very simple task that they need to do. And if you give both of them cucumber for the task, the two monkeys side by side, they're perfectly willing to do this 25 times in a row. So cucumber, even though it's really only water in my opinion, but cucumber is perfectly fine for them. Now if you give the partner grapes, the food preferences of my capuchin monkeys correspond exactly with the prices in the supermarket. And so if you give them grapes, it's a far better food, then you create inequity between them. So that's the experiment we did. Recently, we videotaped it with new monkeys who had never done the task, thinking that maybe they would have a stronger reaction, and that turned out to be right. The one on the left is the monkey who gets cucumber. The one on the right is the one who gets grapes. The one who gets cucumber, note that the first piece of cucumber is perfectly fine. The first piece she eats. Then she sees the other one getting grape, and you will see what happens. So she gives a rock to us, that's the task. And we give her a piece of cucumber, and she eats it. The other one needs to give a rock to us. And that's what she does. And she gets a grape. And she eats it. The other one sees that. She gives a rock to us now, gets again cucumber. She tests the rock now against the wall. She needs to give it to us. And she gets cucumber again. So this is basically the Wall Street protest that you see here.
Okay, so I think you get the idea. When kids see something, that's what they want. So if we're giving our kids access to certain things, that's what the other kids are going to want. When I was in 4th grade, I desperately wanted kugelach because my friends had kugelach. Not that I wanted to play kugelach, but it's like that's what everyone knows what kugelach is, right? Okay. Yeah. So what we want to do is, as a community, as a school community, as a community as a whole, we want to set the standards. What is it that we want for our kids? What are the standards we want to set? Do we want them on devices? One of the simple things we can do is say when we do play dates, they should not utilize digital technology. Let them play. Let them be bored. Play a board game. Let them run around. You know, these are important opportunities for kids to engage in, and when we give them technology, we are hampering their ability to do such things. I can't stress enough the role that parents have in modeling responsible use of technology and their own engagement. We talked about creating dependence on devices for early childhood kids, but the amount of stress that kids experience at that age when they're trying to get their parents' attention and the parent is distracted on their devices, what kind of messaging that sends. When it's a teenager, the teenager will say, oh, my parents are more addicted than I am. right? And then, in fact, there was a research study that found that 6 out of 10 parents were concerned about their teens' technology habits, but 8 out of 10 teens were concerned about their parents' technology habits. But when a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old is trying to get their parents' attention, and the parent is on the device and is not responding, not communicating, they don't understand what's happening. They just know that they're not getting the feedback from the parent that they want. So we need to model responsible digital citizenship. Again, like I said, when it comes to giving your kid a device, postpone. As long as you can get away with it. At some point, the consequences of giving them the device might be less than the consequences of not giving them the device, and that is a parental decision that you have to make. When you get to that point, I encourage you to create a contract with your child about what your expectations are when it comes to technology. I created this contract with my daughter when she was getting her phone. I actually sat her down very similar to this. I brought out my projector. You're getting my 1-hour speech. She got my 3-hour lecture. And basically I explained to her all my concerns: social, psychological, behavioral, impulsivity, disinhibition, compulsivity, desensitization, sleep, mindfulness, resilience, grit, all these topics that I'm concerned about. And I said, come up with a contract that will make me feel comfortable giving it. And we went back and forth, and ultimately we came up with this contract. So do that with your child. Share with them, inculcate your values and expectations when it comes to technology, because that's what they're going to carry with them. Most importantly, when it comes to technology, we are living in a technology world, and it creates both opportunities and challenges, but we need to find balance. That's ultimately what we are looking for. We want to benefit from the shiurim and the Jewish music and the opportunities that technology brings to us, the communication, the connection, the information. We want that, but we also need to find the balance by avoiding it and making sure that it is enhancing our lives rather than serving as an intrusion in our lives. And that's something that I think we have to ask ourselves every day. And some days are going to be better for us than other days, but is technology an enhancement or is it an intrusion? Is it helping me fulfill my goals as an individual and for my family, or is it getting in the way of my goals as an individual and as a family? And the only way to do that is to be thoughtful and deliberative with technology. All too often, the latest device comes out, or and we jump on it. We don't think about what the impact might be. I want to tell you something. I do not have a smartwatch. I made a decision a number of years ago. I'm not begrudging anyone that has a smartwatch. This is about me. I made an assessment of myself, and I said, if I have a smartwatch, I'm going to be very distracted. I will not be able to regulate my behavior if I had a smartwatch. And so I made a decision not that I don't think they're cool, not that I don't think I do want one, but I made a decision not to have one. And you know what? That also made an impact on my children. Because they saw, and I'm transparent about it. I'll tell my kids, oh my God, I would love a smartwatch. It's so cool. And you can change the face and get like a Cartier that looks like a fancy watch. And I made the decision not to have one. And that has an impact on my children, and they make decisions around that as well. So we have to model responsible digital citizenship as well. Finally, 6 suggestions for family success. Number 1, be educated, thoughtful, and deliberative about technology. It should be something that is strategic, that you think about, discuss it with your spouse, and make the best decisions that you can make. Have tech-free time, go dark for dinner. I can't stress enough how impactful going dark for dinner is in my own home. Going for a walk with your spouse, put the phone down, or put it on silent mode. You can use the phone for focusing and shutting things down. I get from parents a lot, I'd love to turn my phone off, but what if my child needs to get in touch with me? You can set your phone up to block everything except a certain phone number. So use those resources, but find the time where technology is put away, and think about how amazing Shabbos is, and we can bring that into the week as well. Have clear personal and family rules. I can't stress that enough. Have the rules, discuss the rules, but have your own rules as well. I have a confession to make. When I daven Shacharis and I have my talis and tefillin on, I do not have my phone with me. You can stop applauding. I know the women are thinking, like, why would you have your phone with you when you're davening? Like, what's that about? Not your husband's. In the 5 towns where I'm from, that's the norm. So I don't have my phone with me. So when I daven, I don't have my phone with me. The good news is my chakras is down to 6.5 minutes. That's the good news. There's like this direct relationship between not having your phone and Hebrew fluency. So if some of the Talmidim are struggling with fluency, take away the technology and you'll get better at that. Model healthy technology behavior, promote non-digital activities. I can't stress that enough. We can't just tell kids don't go on technology. We have to find other activities for them, taking them to the park, sports, gymnastics, whatever kids are interested in, we have to support it. We have to support it both with our time and with our money. That's an investment that we're making. I bought my son a hockey stick for an obscene amount of money. I didn't even know hockey sticks could be so expensive. I guess in Canada you know that hockey sticks can be that expensive. It's like fiberglass and you know what I'm talking about. He's playing hockey and he's not on a computer and he's not on a device, so I'm happy about that. It's a worthwhile investment. Digital can be a shared experience. You can elevate digital activities. Have your children explain. If your child goes on YouTube and they follow someone, know who that is. You may not want them on YouTube, and that's fine. But if they are, know what they're following, know what they're discussing with them. If they're playing a video game, I'll tell you, my son, he doesn't just play hockey, he plays video games too. We play with each other. I'm used to this joystick. And he plays this, so he beats me every time. He feels a sense of mastery. He's very proud of himself that he beat me in NHL, whatever, and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just hitting buttons. I don't know how to play it. But this is part of the relationship. It elevates it just from being technology. And I know we've thrown out a lot of data, a lot of information, and it could be a little overwhelming. Start small. Perfect is the enemy of the good. We're not going to be perfect. We're going to make mistakes. And I believe it was the Tzedek that said, "Trust gets its good." And if we do this together, and we as a community come together, and we do our best, and we think positively, then it will be positive. And thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to the MC.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shapiro. That was very enlightening and well said. Lots to think about and some action-based practical takeaways that we can all have. So well done. Thank you for joining us. We're inspired, but now comes the how. So how do we implement this, and what are some tools, practicals that we can use to be able to come home with? Mr. Aryeh Blau, founder of the Nesher Technology Safety right here in Toronto, has helped countless families and people navigate this with doable steps towards safer and smarter technology use. Filters, screen time tools, full device setups, clearly, practically, and without overwhelm. So we are thankful and graciously welcome Aryeh Blau.
About myself, I spent most of my career, about 17 years at Bell Canada. I led a number of different business units at Bell. I led the Wi-Fi and networking and business networking services across Canada for Bell Business Markets. And also spent about 7 years developing new products and services for Bell Mobility. So I launched things such as a 4G network, voice over Wi-Fi, the Apple Watch, and a whole bunch of other technology and services. And I left Bell in March 2022, and when I left Bell, I said, I've been spending my whole career working in technology, basically, and I was able to see firsthand, working with those who develop the technology, what the harms are. They'll see the harms in my own home. After bringing up children, my oldest is now 25, and my youngest is 14. But I saw how technology shifted. I remember the early days of technology, mobility. I'd bring home all the latest gadgets, all the latest phones, and I was super excited about it. My kids saw that excitement. My oldest son, he loved it. I'd show off all the latest phones, and it was exciting. It was exciting. But back then, I'm talking about probably about 15 years ago, I didn't have the awareness about the risks of technology. Our community didn't have the awareness, and really society as a whole didn't have that awareness. And fast forward to where we are a good 15 years later, that awareness is here. So Baruch Hashem, we have that awareness now, and we can actually do something about it. So what can we do? Hopefully when we're finished today, as I said, we'll actually have some practical things that we can do. So Dr. Shapiro talked about some of these elements. I'm going to go through some of the pieces a little bit fast because it's late. But one of the biggest things that you can do is delay. Delay, delay, delay. Hold back from giving your kids a smartphone. One of the examples I always bring is if your kid came to you today and said, "Can I have a cigarette?" What would you say? Absolutely not. I don't think anybody in this room would hand their kid a cigarette. No matter how old they are, even if they're a teenager, whatever it might be, you're going to say no to a cigarette. But if it was 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, in the 40s, when you were smoking in your house, and it could be your wife was smoking, the Rebbeim were smoking, everyone was smoking, if your kid came over to you and said, "Can I have a cigarette?" Nah, you would hand them a cigarette. And back then, it took us a good 20, 30 years for us to appreciate what the harms are of that cigarette. And back then, if you would have, those families who gave it up and they didn't know, everyone was doing it. It was normal. Nobody knew about the health issues. They wouldn't know about the health issues, nobody would have handed out cigarettes. They wouldn't have been smoking themselves. Today, we know about those harms. We know about the dangers. We have that awareness, and now is our opportunity to actually do something. And again, the first step that you could possibly do is delay. Dr. Shapiro talked a little bit about delay and about the comments about, well, all my friends have it. I was actually in someone's home, helping them install filters about a year or so ago. And his son was there in one of the from schools in Toronto, and he had a smartphone. And I was talking to the mother about the filter we're putting on, or helping put a filter on the device, helping put on a Wi-Fi filter. And I said to the mother, "Put the son there." The boy was about 14 years old. And I said, "Why? How come your son has an iPhone?" She said, "What? All his friends have an iPhone." So I looked at the kid, and I noticed the yeshiva he's in, all his friends do not have an iPhone. And I said, "All your friends have an iPhone?" So he said, yeah, they all have an iPhone. So I said, "Mrs. Blank, can you give me a piece of paper and a pen?" So brings me a piece of paper and a pen. We're at the dining room table, puts it on the table. I said, "Write down, don't write down the names, don't write any Lashon Hara, write down with the initials, all the kids in your class that have a phone." So he sits there, looks at me, looks at his mother, writes down one name, and then looks at me, looks at his mother, and says, "Yeah, there are so many kids that have phones." And it's just that message of your kids are going to ask you for it, and they have a way of nagging. My 13-year-old is the best at nagging, oh my God. But they're going to nag, and they're going to nag, and they're going to nag. And just say no. Just say no, because that's the best way, is just saying no. It's hard. It's very hard as a parent. Flip phones are an easy solution. And who in the room has a flip phone? Okay, well, a few people. So I don't. Okay, so I have a smartphone, and it's very hard today to live without a smartphone. But for children, if their friends don't have smartphones, they don't need a smartphone. If everyone holds back, a flip phone is fine. You're worried about security, worried about your precious Yankel going on the bus and going home. Give him a flip phone, and then he's okay. Just give him a flip phone for security. Get a good filter. This is so important. Now, Rabbi Jacobson spoke a little bit about this, where, I was thinking about him telling the story about the pool. He talked about a fraction of a second. That fraction of a second is how long it takes to really click on something by mistake. Not just click on it, you put the wrong thing in there. Into your search engine, it's so easy for the wrong picture to show up, so easy for the wrong website to show up, and it takes a fraction of a second for a kid to click on something. It's all there. And if it's not filtered, they can click on that, and boom, it's right there in their face. And they see things that they never ever wanted to see, and they never expected to see. These are things that it stays in their mind, and it leaves a terrible and a big impression. And Rabbi Jacobson as well spoke about what our Jewish values are, what our Torah values are. And those Torah values are having Gedarim in place. These Gedarim are so important. And with those Gedarim, we need to make sure that we put on the right filter. We're going to talk a little bit about those filters and what those solutions are, but very important. It's the same thing. You never take your kid, you're talking about swimming. Would you ever take your kid into the middle of the ocean, drop in the ocean without a life jacket? No. That's basically what you're doing if you're giving your kid a computer that's not filtered and saying, "Here, go do your homework." The kids they're curious. Hashem created us with the Yetzer Hara. Hashem created us with that natural drive to look at things, to do things. And we need to properly protect our children and protect ourselves. And we'll talk a little bit about some of those technical solutions. Another thing Dr. Shapiro talked about is keep the tech in the open. Don't let kids take the tech to the room. That's really when things start to really go sour, is kids have things, they start to click on things. We've always had a rule in our house our kids need to do homework, they need to go look at things online, they need to check things out. Could be they're shopping, looking for the next sneakers, the next Nike shoes. Oh, my son drives me crazy. You gotta get all the next, whatever the sneakers are gonna be. But we make sure it's at the kitchen table, we make sure we can see what he's clicking on, and make sure we can see what he can see. Very, very important. Another big piece is lock it down. Make sure you have a password on. This is so important. I know so many people who their kids know their password to their phone, and that is a big no-no. One of the reasons is, and we'll talk about some of the filters that we can put on place, but those filters are controlled with your smartphone. But your kids shouldn't have unlimited access. So someone's house helping with a filter, and the parent was showing me the phone. I was talking about the family settings, and the kid comes over to it, looks at the phone, and wants the phone. I said, wait a second, how do you do that? They're like, oh yeah, my Face ID is my mother's phone. Don't allow your kid to have their Face ID in your phone. That gives them complete access to the phone and all the controls that we're going to talk about. Getting to some of the solutions, one of the things that you could do is you can lock Safari. One of the things that they have now on iOS, on iPhone, is that, I'm not sure if you can see it on the screen here, but you can see if you long press on any app, you can press require Face ID. I have that for my browser, for example. So I have Safari on my phone, and I'll show you a little bit later how that works. But you just long press on Safari, and it gives you an option to say require Face ID. And what that does is it gives you an extra level of protection that if your kid picks up your phone, they're not going to just start browsing over app. I'm sure everyone, it happens to me all the time. Your kid's looking at something, usually it's going on to 24/6, going on to whatever it might be, and they have a phone in their hands. So this gives another protection from the apps we don't want them to have access to. Another great feature also on iPhone, is the latest security feature, is that you can hide apps. I don't have it here, but it's just something you should be aware of. I have on my phone 24/6, which is what I use for music day in, day out. But I also have, don't tell my son, please don't listen to me, I also have Spotify. Why? Because I happened to buy those Alexa speakers back in the day in my house, and they only work with Spotify. But if you look in my phone and you search Spotify, it's not going to show up. Spotify's hidden. I'll show you a little bit later how that works. I'll check my phone and you'll be able to see. But you can actually hide your apps. Your kids can't even find them, don't even know that they're there. So there's certain apps you feel like you need for whatever reason, and no one's judging. We'll talk a little bit about it in a second. But you can hide them so your kids don't even know that you even have them. Next, and Dr. Shapiro talked about this, is park your phone. Your time is precious. You got to be in control. I always say make dinner time precious time. We're choosing activity in your day where there's no phones. One of the things that we do with Asa in our house to help make sure that we don't bring out our phones is we have a docking station on our kitchen table. It's kind of like you see over here. It's a little similar. And in that docking station, you can charge your phone. So it's just another way or another excuse for us to put our phone on the counter. One of the most challenging things we have as men is that we have pockets. Women don't necessarily have that same issue. But as men, having a pocket is that your phone, at least for me, is always in my pocket. And you always have a Yetzer Hara. You get home, you're middle of a message, middle of doing a work thing, whatever it might be, is to pull out your phone vibrates, you get a message, you're texting, you're home for maybe 3 hours at night where you have time to engage with your children. Try as much as possible to disconnect. It's so important. It's not just important for your children, it's important for yourself, and it's important for the role modeling for the children. It's one of the things that we've learned. My wife is so strict at this at home. I try as much as possible, but she's so much better than I am in this. And she realizes that my 13-year-old, if he sees us on our phone all the time, isn't he going to ask us for a phone? If he sees you always on your smartphone and always using your smartphone, it's just that education. It's just, okay, that's what you do. When I get a certain age, I'm going to need a smartphone. Right? Because that's what we do. We're always on our phone, and that's part of just being normal. And I'm not saying that you can today in 2025, it's easy to live without a smartphone. I'm not saying that. But it's part of being able to delay by not always pulling it out, not always having it in front of you, trying to put it aside as much as possible. Don't take your phone to your kid's bedroom when you're putting them to sleep. I've been so guilty with that myself. So many times I'm like, no, messaging someone or something. I put my son to sleep, and all of a sudden my phone vibrates, and it's like still on my head, and I'm pulling it out, I'm responding, I'm like, my poor little uncle is there, I'm trying to put him to sleep, and I'm like there on my phone trying to, like, it's terrible. Try as much as possible, put your phone aside when you get home. And try to find destination sources. This is my own, this is my son. My most favorite place to go on vacation is Algonquin Park. It's not expensive. It's don't need to travel far. The reason why I love Algonquin more than anything is there's no cell service. There's no cell service, and I know myself, in order for me to disconnect and to get that complete menuchas and nefesh, is I need to not have any cell service, go completely off the grid. Find your off the grid, take that time, and I'm telling you it is so refreshing wherever it might be. Even if I used to do this with my wife, we used to go on vacation one-on-one, we'd go into the hotel, we'd take our phones, put them in the safe, lock them, and just take some time and just know that we don't even have access to it. If that's what it takes, do it. Get a safe at home, put your phone in the safe, lock it, make sure your kids don't have the access to it. And you're gonna thank me for it, because it feels great. Next is control tech like a diet. It requires regular maintenance. One of the challenges with technology, really with dieting and for sure, technology as well, is that it's not just one time. You can't just say, hey, I'm gonna set up this filter, I'm gonna decide that dinner time is precious time, I'm not gonna have any phones. It has its way, life has its way of creeping up on you and finding ways to change things. So many times at dinner time, I want to show my kids a video, and it's a very, very kosher video. It might be a message, it might be something that I saw on Torah Anytime, and it might be a great mind video, I'll talk about that in a second. But don't pull out your phone. And it's hard because it's like, hey, you gotta program yourself not to pull out your phone, and you have to keep working on it, We're gonna talk about some of the technical solutions. Even when you put these solutions in place, you can't just do it once and forget about it. You gotta keep working on it. Next is talk to your kids. Communication is so important. Dr. Shapiro talked about this, but you have to talk to them, you have to explain to them why they need a filter. Don't just put on a filter and say, I'm putting this on. It's not just like coming on with a strong force. You have to explain to them that Hashem created us as human beings. Hashem created us with physical needs, physical desires, and part of that is we have to put on the shmirah. We have to put on the guardrails. The reason why when you're going on the highway, there's a rail on the side of the highway to make sure you don't go off. We, as Yidden, always make sure there are gedarim in place, no matter what it might be, and this is part of life, and you're normal. It's so important for kids to appreciate that they're normal for wanting to look at things, they're normal for wanting to click on things. That's what makes them a human being, and that's the way Hashem created us. But we need to know that there's resources out there to help us. No kid wants to get stuck in schmutz. It never feels good. I've spoken to these kids. I know people, I've spoken to counselors. They struggle because, and many of them, and I'll talk a bit about game systems. I just thought of it right now. I was speaking to one of the Rebbeim, and he asked one of his Talmidim, it was a high school in Toronto, and he said, how's your summer? And he said, that was terrible. So he said, why? He said, my parents have a filter, but the Xbox isn't filtered. And he said, I spent the whole summer on schmutz on my Xbox. And he felt terrible about himself, he felt terrible about his summer, and the parents didn't realize. I'm sure the parents didn't realize that the Xbox has a full browser, has a full app store. You can access anything on the internet on an Xbox or a PlayStation. Parents just don't realize that. But it's important, if you talk to your kids, you open up that conversation. Another great resource, anyone listen to Video Mind? No? Okay, so if you don't listen to Video Mind, one of the biggest things you can do tonight is just Google Vayamayim. And there's a great WhatsApp. I listen every single day. Come out every single day. Maybe I've missed once, twice over the last year, is to Vayamayim videos. I show them to my kids. My son just told me in grade 8 in his time that his Rebbe every day plays Vayamayim. What the Vayamayim series is, it's amazing produced videos, and what they do is every day it's a message of encouragement of Shmir Sinayim. And Shmir Sinayim is, if you don't talk about Shmir Sinayim, your kids aren't going to appreciate, number one, the challenge, and appreciate what it means to actually bring Shmiras Einayim into their life and why it's important. And these videos are just an amazing, amazing resource for ourselves. We're talking about us as adults, us as men in the room, and women to less extent, but for sure men in the room. It's such an important resource to make sure that we, for ourselves, take it as an important chizuk for our life. I threw this on today, this moment while I was waiting here. This is my screen at home, and I'm sure you can see the bottom. It says Shvitzi Hashem V'negdi Sami. I was just thinking about this. Is that I remember having my own computer, and it's impossible to not click through your own CNN that something inappropriate shows up. It's just it's everywhere on the internet. And I used to at one point think I can't keep a sitter on my desk. And at one point I started thinking, well, wait a second, I can't keep a sitter on my desk? Hashem's everywhere. Hashem's here. Kedusha's everywhere. All of a sudden, this is something, it's okay for it to be on the screen, but no. This is somewhere, if it's in my house, if it's in my life, you need to protect yourself from it. You need to make sure it's not available. And I put this message on my screen to remind me that Hashem is always there, and we're always around us. And so it's not, I used to think, how could I possibly have Shvitzi Hashem Negi Sami and something pop up on the screen? That's a problem. If it's popping up on your screen, that is a problem. Is you need to deal with it. And that's, again, we're going to talk a little bit about some of those solutions to make sure it doesn't. Another thing, speak to your friends about it. I'll go through some of these quickly because Dr. Shapiro talked about it. Bring these up. It's so important to socialize and speak about the challenges. We talked about play dates. I'm not even going to speak about that one. Okay, let's talk a little bit about technology in a little bit more detail. Technology is complex. There's a lot of pieces. It's complicated. So what I'm trying to do is just to break it down a little bit more. There are apps at the top. Every app has in itself an option for filtering. You can filter a browser. You can, if people are using something like a Netflix, even Roblox. I won't spend it because there's too much time going into it because the time is late. YouTube, all these different apps in themselves have restrictions and parental controls and restrictions. Devices, and we'll talk about devices. Each device has an option to put a restriction and a filter on. And then the platforms themselves, whether it's Microsoft, Android, or Apple, they have their own filters. And then you can put that filter on your home Wi-Fi. Very complicated, a lot of different pieces, but what I'm going to do is going to break it down for you so you can appreciate the different pieces. And you don't necessarily need to tackle everything at once. Start small, start somewhere, and then build from wherever you want your starting point to be. And I'll show you where some pieces you can start today that will actually help you immediately. This is extensions. So in browsers, and I'll show this on my phone at the end how I actually have this. I have this on my phone. So I talked about how do you make sure an image doesn't pop up. On my Chrome browser in the office, I have something called the Chrome Skin Filter. It doesn't work 100% of the time, but when it does work, it works well, is it blocks in all skin tone. And yes, it's annoying. Yes, I'm sometimes trying to shop and something gets blocked. And yes, sometimes I'm going somewhere and it's just like the face is all blacked off and it's like, this is like, oh, I can't do my job properly. You can still do your job, I'm telling you. You know, Baruch Hashem, I'm doing okay. I work in private equity, things are okay, and I still use this as my starting point. And sometimes I do need to turn it off because I go to a website and I need to be able to see something that doesn't work and I turn it off. That doesn't mean you don't turn it on to start off with. Keep it on. I have something on my phone, I'll show you that in a second, called Safari Image Blur. It blurs all the images. It is so annoying. You go to any website, the image is blurred, but it's worth that annoyance in order for Shmiras Einayim. And telling you it will pay back in tenfold, hundredfold by having some of these things on there. I'll talk a little bit about Safari Image Block. You can block all the images. All these things are resources. I'm going through them very quickly, but they're all available on our website. I'll talk a little bit about it later, but it's on nashrsafety.com. You can get more details about all these things. So that's why I'm just touching the surface of some of these. Okay, devices. Tag. Who in the room has gone to Tag? Okay, Baruch Hashem, a lot of hands. So Tag, amazing resource in the city. The organization that I launched was not to compete with Tag. Tag does fantastic things. I work alongside with Tag. Tag has a great service where you can come into the Tag office. Sometimes they'll come to schools and they'll put filters on devices. When I launched Nesher, it was really one objective, that was to fill in the gaps where Tag is not able to support. as well for those who, for whatever reason, you're not going to tag, should at least do something, and that's really what we're trying to do here. But the first line of defense is take your smartphones, take your tablets, take your laptops to tag, and put a filter on it. If it doesn't work for you, there are solutions out there. Here's a list of 4 solutions out there. They're in the resource book as well. Again, they're on the website. There's Custodio, there's Canopy, WebCloud, TechLock, all great different solutions for you that you can do yourself. You don't need to go anywhere. You can do these from your comfort of your home. You can put these filters on your own devices. Flip phones, we know the flip phone revolution. There's people talking about flip phones. My wife's on the verge of moving to a flip phone. You could switch to a flip phone. It's hard, and very hard, especially in today's day and age, but it is possible. People do it. There's some very successful people who do it, and it is possible. Okay, devices. We talked a little bit about this. PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo Switch, they all have browsers. If you don't lock it down properly, playtime can lead to bad time. It's very important that you either put a filter on your gaming system if you have one, or if you know someone who's having one, make sure you talk to them about it, because you don't want your kids in that house if they don't have some sort of filter on. Because any of these devices that are connected to the internet is full exposure to everything that's on the internet. Very, very important. And there's resources again online on naturalsafety.com and how to install. And we'll talk a bit about the end, but if you need help with installing any of these, there's resources to help you install these as well. Okay, at the platform level. So whether you're iPhone or Android, who in the room's iPhone? Who in the room doesn't admit they have an iPhone? No, I'm kidding. Whether you're an iPhone or Android, or if you're on a Microsoft PC or a computer, there's 3 out-of-the-box free solutions that are available. On iPhone, it's something called Screen Time. I'll just briefly show you how that works. Android has something called Family Link, and Microsoft has something called Family Safety, which allows you, if your kid's using your computer, your PC at home, you can apply Family Safety to a profile just for your child. Again, there's details online on how to do that, but you can set up, as how I have it in our house. My son has a separate profile. He goes onto our Windows PC. That profile I set up on Microsoft's Family Safety. When he goes on there, and he clicks on the browser, that browser doesn't even work unless it sends a request from me. I get an immediate notification on my phone, and it says, do you want to allow Ben to have access to Edge browser? I say yes. It asks for how long. I say 60 minutes, and then he now has access to it. It happens instantly. It works really, really well. Screen time as well is very similar, where you can lock different apps for screen time, and as well it asks you for how long do they want to have access to it. So I'm just showing you some screenshots here. Screen time is available in everyone's settings on their iPhone. On Screen Time, you're able to set up your family. You can see here I have on my phone Ben and Yaakov, part of my family, and I can click through and I can set the restrictions on their phone from my phone. No additional technology, no additional solution. It works pretty well. There have been some times where it hasn't worked, but it works it works pretty well. I wouldn't say this should be your only solution, but again, if you have nothing, start here. It's free, it's out of the box, and it's a great way for supporting and controlling your children's devices. One of the things you can do as well, you can restrict Safari. I had my oldest daughter, who's now married, Baruch Hashem. She went to Tiferes Beit Yaakov, and Tiferes, they were allowed to have smartphones. So this is how I worked with her. They all require filters, but I wanted to not just have filters, I didn't want her to have a browser. So the way I locked it down, and it worked well, was I had her phone, I had Safari turned off. As well, I set the filters to restrict app stores to age 9 and below, and that makes sure that they don't download any other browser. By doing that, they won't have access to any other browsers, and you can know that they don't have any other browser. Okay, we talked a little bit about going now to the network level. So we talked about app level, we talked about devices, we talked about the platforms. Now we're going to talk about the actual internet, which is either your home Wi-Fi at home or your mobile internet. And one of the great solutions out there is a product called Griffin. It does replace your Bell Wi-Fi or Rogers Wi-Fi at home. There's instructions online on how to do this, but you have to go into your Bell router and turn off your Wi-Fi. Otherwise, it doesn't do anything because your kids can still access your Wi-Fi. Don't think your kids don't have your Wi-Fi code. Your Wi-Fi code is so easy to get access to. So don't think, oh, you know what, my kids don't have my code. They have your code. You can press a button on your Bell router, I don't know if you know this, and it will say what your Wi-Fi password is. So if you think your kids don't have your Wi-Fi password, they do. You need to make sure that you take an extra level of security. There's ways to change that. You can actually go into your Bell Wi-Fi router and you can say, don't display my Wi-Fi password. So that's an option actually in your Bell Wi-Fi router. But if you want an added level of control, you can purchase a product called Griffin Parental Control. It's a Wi-Fi router with a parental control structure really built into it. There's an app to manage it from your device. It's a really good solution. Another solution is something called, I won't go into the details, but it's a DNS cloud filter. So basically, it blocks certain websites. It blocks certain websites from even loading onto your phone. So it's kind of like, the whole internet is basically a phone book. And when you put in a phone number, which is like an IP address, it finds that different website. So what this service does is it stops these websites from coming to you. So you can load this on your phone for free. You can load this on your computers at home, your Windows computers. You can put this on Android. It's all free. They have a free family filter. Now, it doesn't allow you to control it, but at least it blocks all the bad things. And it's actually something you can do right now. You can actually, if you go to your phone right now, you can pull it out. If you download Apple, if you just put this into your browser, apple.nationalsafety.com or android.nationalsafety.com into your browser, you'll get a pop-up and you'll get instructions, and your phone will have a filter immediately. So I can give you a second, but it's apple.nationalsafety.com. I can, afterwards, if you want to come over to me, I can show you how to do it. It's a little late in time, so I don't want to do it right now, but it's a solution right now that you're able to use. And again, it'll block all the bad stuff immediately. Just want to show you a couple of the things that I have on my phone. Because you will, hopefully it will. Does that work? No? It's not working? Okay, oh, that worked, okay. It doesn't always work. Okay, so this is my screen, this is my actual phone. So when you click on my phone, and I click Safari, so here's Safari. I'm not sure if you saw that, but in order for Safari to even load, I had to be my Face ID. So again, how do you do that? If you long press on Safari, let me choose an app, so ChatGPT, as you can see I use. If I press on this, it gave me the option to require Face ID. So if I say require Face ID, it says require Face ID, or it gives me the option to hide and require Face ID. So I'm going to just do for this one, require Face ID. And now, when I click ChatGPT, I'm not going to put my face there, but you can see it says Face ID required to open ChatGPT. Again, these are just, if you have any apps on your phone that you don't want your kids to have natural access to, you lock it down by putting this another level, a layer, and it takes a second, so it doesn't even slow you down. So again, look quickly. Okay, another feature which I showed you, which was something called blur. Let me show you how this works. I clicked, let me see what I clicked. I clicked the top left corner, and it says blur image and video blur. And when you press on that button, it gives me the option of I can turn it off. So it's just CNN, it's just a picture of Biden, so you can turn it off. And you'll see there's a picture of Biden. And then if I turn it back on, it's blurred. So this is for myself. This is when my own spirits and I am, is when I go and I search the internet, I want to make sure I'm protected. So the hour's late, but again, these resources are online on nationalsafety.com. There's solutions out there that you can make use of. I just want to say, is anyone in the room tech savvy? Okay, I see a few hands. We need help. Klal Yisrael needs help. And when it comes to technology, the best people to help Klal Yisrael with technology are those who know technology. So this is just a call for help and assistance and support. We set up a website, so you're ready to help and you're available to help. And as people need assistance, what we will do is we'll connect you with people. I personally, and I don't get paid for it, I go to people's house and I help them set up technology. People call me, people WhatsApp me, and just to help Klal Yisrael really with this is a huge issue. And we need people with technology, so who know technology. If you know technology, please come to us, and we'll explain to you how you can get involved. You can help people in the room who are less tech savvy with some of the technology issues. So just to close off, be a positive role model. You're in charge of your kids, so you're in charge, and maintenance is key. And again, everyone can get involved today. Thank you very much.
Das mi verbindt sich mit der Sache, wo sie gefühlt sich eben, mit der Sache, wo sie lemeile min Azman und min Amoke, ist afal pi, was gefühlt sich in Zman und in Moke, gibt ihm der Eberste die Möglichkeit, als ich in See, wird durchführen den Ebersten Schlichus. Beschaß mis verbunden eben, oder dämmelt fällt mir nicht unten.
Today more than ever, it's time for action. For our children, for our homes, for our future. Here are 10 practical, real-life strategies families are using to encourage healthier, more conscious technology use at home. 1. Start with yourself. Children mirror us. Parents who put their phones away during key family times, like after school, set a strong example. 2. Remove the visual pull. Switching screens to grayscale, disabling message notifications, and even parking phones in a fixed location can reduce temptation and lead to more mindful use. 3. Set boundaries and be intentional. Use Do Not Disturb modes, scheduled screen-free hours, or even accountability partners. Some even leave their smartphones at work and bring home a basic emergency phone. These boundaries create freedom. 4. Use tools that help you disconnect. Apps like Digital Detox or device tools like Screen Time let you block distractions, schedule internet shutdowns, and enforce boundaries. You can even program it to charge you a fee to override. 5. Designate tech-free zones. Bedrooms and dinner tables can be phone-free sanctuaries. Some families even ban charging devices in bedrooms, seeing real improvements in sleep and focus. 6. Rethink device placement. Keep computers in public areas and restrict tablet access with parent-only passwords. This adds transparency and reinforces that digital access is a privilege, not a default. 7. Batch your responses. Instead of reacting to every ping, set specific times to check and reply to messages. This helps both kids and adults stay more present and less reactive. 8. Use tech smarter. Smartwatches can give access to important messages while allowing phones to stay out of sight. Physical alarm clocks are a simple swap that keep phones out of bedrooms. 9. Make offline time irresistible. Fill your home with books, games, crafts, and fun traditions. It's not just about restriction, it's about showing kids there's more joy offline. Your home can still be the fun house without the screens. 10. Build community solutions. Filters help, but real change happens together. Must is a great initiative to get involved in developing class-wide solutions for your kids. The desire to protect our children is powerful, but passion alone won't do it. We need tools. We need action. We need each other. Tonight, choose one small change to start with. Just one. Let's stop sighing. Let's start doing. For ourselves, our children, and our community. Together, we'll watch the change unfold.